Hello. Um, Danish nationals, the preliminary mission pack. I'm still talking through the tactics for the different scenarios in it. And the one I've reached now is called Alpha Target. Alpha Target is, I think it's from, was it from Bold Action Alliance pack? I think. Or maybe it's the Jugger pack. I forgot. Anyways, Alpha Target is a really interesting one because you have one objective. Um, and it's placed in the center or 12 inches from the center along the central line. And the thing is that you don't score points for keeping that objective at the end, you score points for having that objective at the end of each turn after turn 2. And subsequent turns will increase the value so that in turn 3 you'll score 3 points, turn 4 you'll score 4 points. So the most important turns, if you can have them, then it's turn 5 and 6, right? Turn 5 and 6, those two together should give 11 points. So even though there will be a turn 7 and a turn 3 where the enemy might have it, he'll only have 10 points. If you can score those 5 and 6, you won. So, and there's also one more thing. You also get kill points. 1 point per unit that you kill. So you can't really sacrifice everything just to get the objective. You will have to think about conserving your forces and being on the objective, or at least contesting the objective every turn so that you win. And this is a really tricky balance, I know, because we played this scenario during our last mini tournament. And I played against Mark, and he won on kill points. I think he was 9-5 or something like that. But I had the objective 3 consecutive turns, so I won on overall. But I was sacrificing so many of my troops to keep that objective. It was really, really difficult. And my army got absolutely cut up. And that's one of the things you have to think about. You have to think about a slow and steady approach to the objective, to have the objective and to keep the enemy away from the objective while conserving your force. It's really a tricky scenario. Even though there's only that one objective, it turns into a real thinking contest where you're constantly thinking, how can I block what the enemy has to move up? How can I make sure that my own troops stay alive? So if you get to place the objective, think very, very carefully about where you want the objective to be, because you're not going to know which side you're going to start on. You're just going to know whether you want the objective to be in terrain, in the open, behind something, depending on what your table will allow, right? So think very carefully about that. I don't think I thought about it enough during my game against Mark. I had placed the objective in the open, and that meant that Mark, who had a lot of artillery, was firing at me non-stop, and I lost so much. I think perhaps it would have been better had I placed it. There was some forest nearby. I think it might have been better had I placed it in the forest. I could at least have gotten soft cover for that, for some of those shots. On the other hand, that would also have meant that he could have moved up to the forest without me shooting at him. In the end, it turned out I didn't have many shots coming at him because all my all my Daka, it went down, turn 2 and 3. It died on me from his artillery. So it was really a tricky game, and it's a really interesting scenario to play. And it rewards the slow and methodical player. Don't rush up to the objective. I did that. I lost 2 units doing that. A lieutenant and a truck died because I had pushed that truck with some content up to the objective. That was a mistake. Don't rush the objective. Just make a slow and methodical approach, turn 1 and 2, and then on turn 3 have something ready within 6 to 12 inches of the objective and move up to the objective. Contest it at least. If you can't push the enemy off, then at least have something where you contest. And be ready to sacrifice 1 unit each turn, just doing that contest. That would be my suggestion for how to play Alpha Target. Both sides must have at least half their forces in the first wave, can be the entire force if so desired. You can also have reserves and outflanking, and you can have forward deployment. Forward deployment in this scenario sounds like a good idea because you can start up on the objective, right? But unless you have some very strong forward deployers, I'm thinking Soviet SMG armed scouts, then I don't think it's worth it. Because turn 1 and 2, you'll not be collecting victory points from that objective, even though you start on it. So you might have your scouts up near the objective, ready for turn 3, but you can do that with the rest of your army. Reserves, I see no reason to have reserves in this scenario, unless you have a very, very big tank that you want to have move up to a very specific location because of how the enemy is moving or what the enemy has. But usually I would still have that tank move straight towards the objective. Because the thing about big tanks, right, is that they're very scary, they're very hard to kill, and that's really good for taking like one place, pushing your army up, make that tank the spearhead of your army and just push up to the objective. Slowly and carefully, being mindful of what anti-tank capabilities the enemy has. So I don't think reserves are worth it. Outflank, definitely not worth it in this scenario. The objective will be in the center of the table. Unless you have a very, very, very specific reason to outflank, there's no reason to do so, because your outflankers will have no effect on the fight for this objective, right? They're too far away. They're coming onto the flanks. Forward deployment, maybe, but usually not. So I would suggest just having everything in first wave, pushing everything up slowly, methodically in the center towards the objective, making sure your army is where it needs to be, artillery on the flanks where it can still see the objective, infantry centrally moving straight towards the objective, with as much cover as possible, because you're going to need that infantry turn 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right, they were my suggestions for Alpha Target. Cheers.